Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin on Rugby preview show. It's great to be back covering actual matches as part of our fifth season of pods. And joining me to look ahead to Ireland's opening match in the Summer Nation Series, aka the World Cup warm-ups, is someone making his 40th Harpin pod appearance. A warm welcome back to Mr. Mark Jackson.
Thanks for having me back again, Jeff.
No problem. Good to see you, man. Well, before we get into the match itself, we had Kigo on our season preview, season premiere at the weekend, talking about overall expectations from the summer series. So since we've got you here, maybe you can give us a few words on what you're looking at over the three matches yourself.
I'll give you 3 words: no injuries, please.
Yep. Amen.
That sort of covers it. Listen, we've suffered in the past, particularly going back over the years. You know, David Wallace with Tuilagi in Lansdowne Road, that injury that pretty much finished David Wallace's international career. You know, you don't want to see any injuries. Yeah, it'd be great to get 3 wins and keep that momentum going, but I'm sure Andy Farrell will take no injuries and a building of intensity and a building of performances from all the players. I think that's what you're looking for from a coaching point of view. From a player's point of view, you want to get as much minutes as you can to show what you can do. Farrell is not the biggest experimenter in terms of selection. So this week's selection is actually quite a good balance of youth and experience. And, well, if you want to say youth, we've got a relatively youthful team anyway, I think, across the board. But it's an inexperienced teams in terms of caps in certain positions, and they'll get good experience from hopefully a couple of runouts. But I would expect when we play England, he will probably. You never know with Andy Farrell. You know, we've got chats on the Harpin group during the week on what he'll do. You know, we've all got different guys we'd like to see in certain positions. I know there will definitely be a provincial bias on guys getting game time or not getting game time, but I'm sure that will come to a head over the next 3 weeks with the final selection of the 33 that are going to go to France. So we'll see what happens there. But the big one, as I said at the start, is no injuries.
Yeah, provincial bias. What's that? There's none of that. Jesus, where'd you get that from?
Well, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Okay, listen, let's move on to our feature match this week, which is in the Summer Nation Series, is what it's called. And actually, according to the official website, the Scotland-Italy game was in week 0. Of the Summer Nation Series. Apparently this weekend is week 1. Why? We'll never know. But anyway, this match happens. Ireland are playing Italy on Saturday, August the 5th, kickoff 8 p.m. at the Viva Stadium. And the teams were announced on Thursday. Now, for this season's previews, we're going to do things a little differently. I've asked, instead of going through the team one by one, you can see the team. I've got it there in the program notes if you're listening, or I'll have them on the screen on the video, of course. But I've asked Mark just to pick out 3 things, 3 kind of Harpin points from this Ireland selection, and go through himself. And I think you want to start with the number 7 position.
Number 7, yeah, we've got Caelan Doris there this week. He's played there before, although minimally, for both Leinster and Ireland, more or less in a cover position. Josh van der Fleer is light years ahead of our best 7 for how we want to play. But just to touch on how we do play, we don't play with a traditional fetcher. We never really have played with that guy that's over the ball 60-70% of the time, a la, say, Heinrich Brousseau that used to play for the Springboks, or Richie McCaw, the guys that are getting 10-12 turnovers. What you've got in how Ireland play is a much more balanced numbers-wise in terms of who looks for turnovers. So our 7 has been a carrier for a long time. You know, you go back to as I said, before mentioned David Wallace, but also Sean O'Brien. You know, there were different types of 7s that were traditionally picked by, let's say, Wales would have had that Jackling 7 for a long time. And, you know, the likes of Neil, going back to Neil Back, lots of countries now have gone back to a Jackling 7, but we still seem to have an all-court game from guys that play from 4 to 8, really. You know, they're all expected to carry. They're all expected to do a job on the line out. It'll just be interesting to see how our line out works with Doris at 7, because Josh doesn't jump. He stands in at that +1 position a lot, or if he's at the back of the line, he comes around and does that dummy maul move that we do, and he's almost a scrum half role, allowing Gibson Park or whoever's at 9 to roam a bit further out. So it'll be interesting to see if Doris does that. But also he's this selection at 7 could actually tell a lot with what the final 33 balance is going to be. On a personal note, the most unlucky man in the Irish back row, most people will say it's probably Gavin Coombs for not getting a run out. But personally, for me as a 7, it's Will Connors, who before he got injured there a couple of years ago, was probably ahead in the pecking order in terms of how Andy Farrell was looking at it between himself and Josh. And Josh took his chance unbelievably well. And obviously, Rugby World Player of the Year, European Player of the Year, every accolade that's going, he's gotten deservedly so. So if Doris goes well here, that might take another box in terms of how Farrell sees the final selection of the balance in the back row and the numbers of back row that he takes. He may take an extra second row lock as opposed to an extra back rower. So that's the main point I wanted to make regarding that selection at 7 this week.
Yeah, we've spoken a lot about versatility on the pod, the importance of it to the squad. It's not if the first team is pretty much nailed on, then the other players he brings, it really helps if they can play. A lot of people have said this guy should be there, that guy should be there, but they're specialist players in their positions. These extra fringe, if you call them that, squad players, they have to be able to play multiple positions. But it's interesting that if I suppose this means that if Van der Fleer gets injured, God forbid, but if he does, is it going to be Caelan Doris going into 7? Is that pretty much a given now?
I don't know if it is. I think it might be just resting O'Mahony. I think O'Mahony is probably his second choice 7, and Doris, Conan, O'Mahony are nailed on for selection for the 33. It depends then now on guys, some who are playing on Saturday. Jack Conan's had a resurgence this last sort of 6-7 months. He's played excellently, but you're going to have the Munster lads calling for Coombs. You're going to have the Ulster lads calling for Timoney to have a shot, and some of these guys are in the squad and aren't. We've been to see what happens over the next 2 weeks. But if Doris goes well at 7, it may knock a late call up out for somebody. That's where I think Farrell probably has got 29 of his 33 picked at this moment in time, and that other position, those 4 positions that are left, will be in the back row and probably the makeup of the back 3 to see what he does. And when we go into the next segment here, that's what we talk about, is the back 3 sort of setup too. But Doris is a different player to O'Mahony. We know that O'Mahony is probably the best of our back rowers over the ball, especially at slowing down the ball. Doris is your extra carrier. You've got 3 second rows playing there in Henderson. Henderson obviously can play 6 as well. McCarthy's out and out second row. Baird can slot into the second row. So it'll be interesting to see who he brings off the bench and where he brings them on. Does he bring Byrne on into the row? Does he bring Byrne on into 6? Possibly having a look at Cian Prendergast, who can play across the back row as well. This is Prendergast's shot, I think, when he gets on. If let's say we have a strong 60 minutes from Doris, he'll probably give Prendergast a run for the last 20, I would say, at least, if not a half an hour, because my opinion on having the smaller training squad that he has, he can't really justify anybody being in that squad unless he gives them at least a half an hour run out, 25 minutes in it, if in 1, if not 2 of the warm-up games. I still rather see Doris at 6 or 8 myself, but it goes back to how, as a country, we have laid out our positional 7. It's different to other nations at the moment, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're definitely, this first election is definitely giving us a lot to think about. Well, let's move on to that second point, and you want to talk about the back 3, especially the 15 position.
Yeah, we're all worried if Hugo Keenan goes down, who's next up. Jimmy O'Brien's probably got that nod, I think, with the selection this week. Again, he's a similar player to Hugo Keenan insofar as very solid under the high ball, very good roaming fullback. He's got a lot of positional sense, really good positional sense, and he's got that howitzer left boot as well when he wants to connect with it. It's just to see himself in Stockdale, and I know we're discussing who will be that second James Lowe option. Obviously, take some pressure off Crowley at 10. So I think you'll see both Stockdale and Jimmy O'Brien stepping into that role. I think they'll both get a chance to see who's the auxiliary left footer in the team. but a solid performance here from Jimmy O'Brien probably nails him into that squad. I would say he's probably in there already. And a strong performance from O'Brien doesn't necessarily knock himself or put himself on the plane that he's already on. It probably knocks one or two other people out of contention more than anything else. But the two positions I went for 7 and 15, because if we do unfortunately get an injury to Van der Fleer or Hugo Keenan, it's not that you don't trust the players behind them. They just don't have the minutes of experience in those positions to have, let's say, full confidence going into a big game.
Absolutely. And just quickly on the also on the back three, I mean, it's like the on the wings, we've got to return to 2019 with Earlsey and Stockdale, but considering how the team has done without them in the past year with other options, how important is this outing for them and their chances?
Keith Earls is one of those freaky guys that unfortunately he's had a lot of injuries, but never lets you down, and always, he came back in for Munster twice this season after injuries and performed straight away. Stockdale, on the other hand, I think is slightly blessed to be in that greater training squad on form. That's my personal opinion. I know the Ulster lads will go to bat for him every day of the week. I'm just not as confident. I don't think he's had the run of form to justify a selection. Fair play to him. He's there. If he's training well and he has a good game on Saturday, more power to him. But he defensively is what has always worried us about Stockdale. It's nothing to do with his attacking. But he's up against a Dogbu who is an English-born player who's getting a chance. He's a very good attacking right winger, and he'll put it up to him on Saturday. I just feel if somebody like Kapawatsu was fit and firing, I think Italy would target Stockdale. I still think they will target our left wing. And the way they play with out the back, they try and get to those 15 to 5 meter channels and try and test wingers defensively. I think both Stockdale and Earls will be tested often and tested early. And it's not last chance saloon, but it's not far off it. Yeah. For both of them, really. Yeah, like Keith Earls is a player who everybody has admired for many a year, and Stockdale had one of the best years a winger ever had before he got injured. And I hope for Ireland's sake they both have great games. I just hope they have solid games more than anything else to start off with.
Absolutely. Okay, listen, we're going to move on to your third point now, and you want to go back to the scrum and have a look at the another versatile kind of position.
Yeah, that sort of 5-6 hybrid that we seem to produce quite a few players on. The Ian Hendersons, the Ty Burns, and Ryan Bairds. All three can play those positions. In terms of out and out second rows, we've got McCarthy, Ryan, and Treadwell. I think if Baird has a stormer, and maybe you're looking at Henderson might get a run at 6, I don't think he will. I think if Baird has a stormer, and if McCarthy has a solid game, I think that's probably the nail in the wall for Kieran Treadwell's chances. That's one of those 4 positions maybe, or the 5 positions that are up for grabs. I know people will say there's going to be a Leinster bias with Joe McCarthy because he had an injury period there where Treadwell probably was actually playing all right for Ulster and doing quite well. But this is a case now where the coaches are going to give the guys, I would say, likes of Treadwell and McCarthy, it's one or the other for the playing, and I think whoever plays best in these knockout stages will get that nod. But that 5-6 position, we were slightly worried about the selection of Baird in the second row being underpowered before the Grand Slam game in England, but my God, he had a fine end to the season, and I think Baird is probably on the plane. But as I said, yeah, that McCarthy, if he has a really good game this weekend and keeps his penalty count in check, I think that's probably the thing that most players will probably put against McCarthy is he can let slip, especially sort of ruck time. He can be a bit overzealous there and can see the odd penalty that he might otherwise have thought second time about. But yeah, I think if McCarthy has a strong one, I think Treadwell might be a bit trouble there.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting. Yeah, interesting second row selection altogether for him. You got Henderson in, and he's captain in the team for the day. But even we're not even 100% sure he would make the ideal starting 15 going into the World Cup, as great and all as he is, and such a leader that he is. And then you got McCarthy at the other end of the scale, just making his name in the team now. We've seen what he can do for Leinster. We want him to get his basics right, but for Leinster, we've seen flashes of him really good in broken play as well, open play, getting involved in combinations and offloading, all that stuff. Hopefully he'll get a chance to show what he could do there. So we'll just see how that turns out. Okay, so we're going to move on to our opposition, which is, of course, Italy. You've had a look at their 23. What do you think?
Yeah, the big name missing is obviously Capowazzo. He's set the world alight both for Toulouse and Italy over the last couple of years. But there are times his build is pretty frail still, that he's going to have the odd injury here or there. That's a pretty strong Italy selection. It's probably 85% of their strongest selection that they can probably go for at this moment in time. Where their strengths would lie, and the battle I'm looking forward to most is actually the back rows, where Negri and Zuliani, especially up against Beard and Doris, to see. I think that whoever comes out on that, like, don't get me wrong, Ireland should win this game, but it's not a given by any matter of means. Italy against Scotland last week, Italy didn't show too much because it was mostly their second choice selection. You saw a lot of these guys that are playing on Saturday were in the stand. With the selection of Kilcoyne coming back in as well, see how he goes against Riccioni, who's not a bad prop. Fisichetti, it's a good front row, it's a good back row. It's a solid pack from Italy. Where I think we can get at Italy actually is at the half-back selection, not mostly at 9 at Varney. I don't rate Varney that highly, to be honest with you. I think if we can isolate him in defence, it's what a lot of teams try and do. It's where we can get some purchase there. Garbisi's a quality player. Brex has had a really strong last Six Nations. He's a big, powerful centre. He's got nice, soft hands too. So the back row and the back three is where I think we can, if we win those battles, we'll win it. Tommy Allen at full back is not Tommy Allen at 10. Positionally, I'd like to see how we test Tommy Allen early doors, especially with Ioane and Dogwu. I wouldn't say they're the greatest positionally defensive-wise. So Crowley's a very good kicker, a la O'Gara, out of hand. I hope we give him enough time to probe those spaces in Lansdowne Road and see what we do. So the kicking game for Ireland will be very important to start off with, which means Stockdale and Earls and O'Brien will be getting on their bikes, hopefully, and putting pressure on the opposition there. But the strength of Italy has been for a long time in their sort of back five in their pack. And it's a good matchup for the Irish back five in the pack and the Italian back five in the pack as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to just a quick look at the officials. As you can see there, Mathieu Reynal has the whistle, and there's assistants. They're all French. The weather forecast for the Aviva Stadium is mainly clear, 12 degrees rain, 12 degrees, 15% rain, not much wind. And so that's that. And before we get to your prediction, there's a lot of other rugby going this weekend, Summer Nation Series and other matches. Of all the other matches, which one caught your eye the most?
I think we could obviously go for the obvious New Zealand-South Africa game, but I think the Scotland-France game is one that we need to keep an eye on. We've obviously got that big ding-dong with South Africa. Whoever wins that will probably win the group. But Scotland are throwing out a lot of positive vibes, as they always do. That's their first choice selection, pretty close to it, if not their full 23 that they're going out against France, whereas France have probably got half and half. To be fair, it's probably 30% of the French starting 23. You'd say, no Dupont, none of the really big names, but it's good to see Jalabert get a shout and to see what he can do at 10 for France, because in all likelihood, fingers crossed, we'll end up playing both of these countries in the World Cup at some stage. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes. If you've got permission from your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend to watch 23 hours of rugby, I think you can watch 23 hours of rugby this weekend, from start to finish. But there's a lot of good matchups out there. But the one I'll definitely be keeping an eye on is the Scotland and France game.
Yep. And also, if you get permission, that kind of permission, please email me at paganoblog@gmail.com and tell me how you did it. Okay. So that just leaves us with our prediction for the Ireland Italy game. How do you see it going?
I think we'll probably have enough by 10, 12 points, considering the squad we had. If as long as we show some signs of continuity, it would be great. Italy have been in camp similar sort of time to Ireland. They've got one game under their belts, but not really this squad as such. So they'll be playing together for the first time in a long time as well as us. It will be scrappy. There will be penalties. There will be knock-ons, regardless of weather or whatever else. So I think anybody expecting a 50-point win might be a bit too much. But if Ireland click, it could be 20, 25 points. I'd rather take a solid win, no injuries, and something to build on. So I'll go Ireland by 15.
Grand. And of course, we all know that when the full-time whistle blows, when you get on social media, there'll be none of this provincial bias we'll be talking about in the comments. And we'll all unite as one behind the Ireland team at every position, no matter what happens. We're very, very much looking forward to that. Listen, thanks a million, Mark, for coming on and helping us with our preview. And we'll see you later on in the season, please, God.
Pleasure as always, Jeff. Thanks a million.
And coming up next on Harpin on Rugby, we'll have a wrap recording on Sunday. So look out for that. And as ever, check out our social media channels and be sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you can. All the links can be found in the program notes. Enjoy your rugby wherever you are this weekend, folks. Slán.